Well, good morning, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to the Tuesday, May 9th meeting of the Cook County Board of Commissioners. And if we'd stand, please, for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Well, welcome everyone. This morning I just wanted to check and see if there are any adjustments to our agenda. Any changes or adjustments? Seeing here or hearing none, is there a motion to approve our agenda?
So moved.
Thank you, Commissioner Hawkins. We have a motion to approve our agenda. Is there a second?
Support.
Oh, Commissioner Storley beat you out. So we have a motion and support. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. At this time, we have our public comment period, an opportunity for citizens to appear before the county board on any matter of county concern. And when invited to speak, please speak into the microphone for clarity, sign in and state your name, address, and the topic you are addressing. Are there any members of the public that wish to speak this morning? All right. Mr. Mott, come forward. Thank you.
Good morning. I apologize. I should have filled this out before, as I knew I was going to speak this morning, but I'm still getting used to kind of being behind the microphone here. First, I want to thank the county board for this opportunity for public comment. It is truly valued by me and I think others in the community. I want to thank the professional staff here that are assisting the board to get this work done. As an acknowledgement, I know it doesn't get done without this professional staff. And some of those staff has been very generous with their time and information sharing these last couple of weeks as I've tried to learn more about what's happening locally in our county government. And Commissioner Sullivan, for your leadership of the board and kind of working with me, at least digitally right now, on some of these things I'd like to talk about today. I have two primary topics. One is the airport master plan, and the second is the Sawtooth Bluffs master plan. I do also want to acknowledge the folks who take care of this building and keep it safe. It was beautiful coming in, and I felt really comfortable and welcoming. So for those that are listening, I just want them to know that it's a very easy place to come in, and the people are very friendly. And then finally, before I get started, I want to just thank you as a resident for acknowledging the work of the county staff last week. I think too often the staff is not acknowledged for their hard work, and what you guys did last week is a great kind of acknowledgement of that work. And as a resident, I appreciate that you guys are aware that that needs to be done. So thank you. Okay, so the last time I spoke with you, I talked about why I got involved with trying to bring disc golf to the community. Now I want to talk to you a little bit about the how and the what. So I spent 6 years on the county's Park and Trail Commission and 20 years in county park and recreation management in the Twin Cities. I've led or participated on a leadership team for over 15 regional park and trail master plans and 2 comprehensive county plans. I thought I could help this group. What I thought I could do basically was plug in to the uses already occurring at the airstrip. But as I mentioned last week, there's a lot of folks using that airstrip right now that reached out to me and said, hold your horses, okay? So what I attempted to do was plug in to the master plan process, which my experience tells me there are opportunities for public input in these public investments that are visioning out into the future what this land is going to be. And so we want to participate not only as a disc golf community, but all these users groups. They want to have a permanent presence in that park and not be, faced with a situation where it's unclear what their future is, and then something comes along and they lose access to those locations. We have a unique responsibility in a community adjacent to the boundary waters, right? We all love the boundary waters, but the practical effect of the boundary waters was we banned motorized activity there. And as a county adjacent to these lands, we must recognize the role we play in facilitating that recreation use. And I know there's been some things talked about recently that aren't palatable to the community, but there are reasonable things that these user groups have asked us for, some of which were expressed during the Sawtooth Bluffs Master Plan that I just don't see happening on the ground. So, as someone who works with these multiple use groups, I reached out to these folks, and they didn't kick me out of their meetings, which I wouldn't blame them for based on the history here. They were very welcoming as well. So there's all sorts of folks, all sorts of stakeholders at the airstrip. I haven't talked about the local businesses, the Lakeshore Association. I live within a mile of the airport, and I can't see these stakeholders represented either on the advisory council or in the committee that's been established. So briefly on the Sawtooth Bluffs plan, it's not complete, okay? There are many hours and a lot of effort. It's a good plan. It was developed with a lot of public input, but it's not done, okay? It needs to be done before it can be reinforced at public meetings or explored with user groups as the future of, for instance, where disc golf is going to happen. If it's not a plan, it's not going to happen anytime soon. So I have two requests of the county board. The first is to finish the Sawtooth Bluffs plan. Please, we brought it, this group of volunteers in the Park Commission, we brought it to the 1 yard line, okay? 99 yards is a hell of a run. We just need it 1 yard over the finish line, and we have our first regional park. It would be amazing. Okay, number two is about the airport master plan. I like to try to make things stick, so I developed 4 Ps in this request. The 4 Ps. One is pause. Pause the direction of the master plan. It's been over a year now that you've been working on it, and there's no input, no opportunity even for input. I went to a public meeting, the advisory meeting, and on the agenda, there was no opportunity for public comment like we have here today. So I wonder where our opportunity is for public input. So that's number 2, pivot. Pivot what we're doing and open up a public process so we can get some input. Number 3, let's pilot disc golf on this site. We can do it at no cost, and what we learned is no impact to the user groups currently using the park. And then number 4, park. Plan to make this airstrip a park. You don't have to do it right now. You can have the Park Commission do it in the future, but in this master plan for the airport, for the future, let's designate that land south of Devil Track Lake as a park. We can work with the seaplane base to make that happen and the other users. I'm very confident of that. So, in closing, I just want to thank you again for the opportunity. It really is unique to be able to come in front of you and just have your ear and share it with you. I look forward to engaging more one-on-one and with the group as a whole. But right now I am kind of learning and developing some of my partnerships and coalitions so that I can come to you confidently and say, I can help with some of these things I've just asked you to do. Okay? So thank you very much. Have a great day. I hope it goes great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other members of the public that wish to speak this morning? Seeing or hearing none, we'll move on in our agenda, and we have our consent agenda items. Is there any item a commissioner would like to pull this morning? Any items to pull?
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Thank you, Commissioner Mills. We have a motion to approve our consent agenda. Is there a second?
Support.
Thank you, Commissioner Hawkins. We have a motion and support. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right. So in about 3 minutes, we're scheduled to have a public hearing, and rather than pause, I think there's an item that we can move forward with, and then we'll come back to our hearing. And so I'd like to ask for Engineer Haas to come forward to talk about one item from the Highway Department, the approval of a half-ton pickup purchase.
Good morning. Thank you. I'll go fast.
Good morning.
Yeah, so this is the purchase of a pickup truck. This is an addition to our fleet. So this is an additional pickup truck outside of what we already currently own. We had talked about this back in September, I believe. And the plan at that time was to actually purchase a 3/4 ton. And we were going to do some internal shuffling on who typically drives what. But we talk a lot about the state bid and purchasing vehicles off of there. Normally, that's what we do. We've also talked a lot about how those lists aren't open yet to even get on, to get in line to purchase a vehicle. So that's kind of the first point. The second point is, if you read the description, it came to our attention that there's some old grant funding, basically, that is set to expire in 2024, and it's in the amount of, I think, $68 some odd thousand, and we can use those grant funds to offset our environmental specialists, our ag inspectors' salary. So we will save that salary. So basically what we want to do is use those savings. We spec'd out a truck down at Sanju and Two Harbors. I made a few phone calls in the region to see kind of what was out there for trucks. This one was the least expensive option, but so it's a kind of an atypical route to purchase a pickup. But the savings that we get in offsetting, kind of her salary in one avenue allows us to fill this need that we've talked about quite a bit already. So. Does anybody have any questions? Yes.
Commissioner White.
Oh, sorry.
What kind of truck? What year? What's the mileage?
2023, 6 miles, and like a base model Chevy 1500 half-ton.
4-wheel drive?
Yes.
Are there other questions that commissioners have? Commissioner Hawkins.
Thank you. I just want to clarify, because in August at our Highway Advisory Committee, it was a 3/4 ton pickup.
Correct.
And that was debated there, whether it should be 3/4 ton or half ton.
So-
And you said you needed it for hauling equipment.
Yes. So the reason being is we wanted the initial idea was we have an existing half-ton in our fleet that was going to go towards this position. And so what we would do is take that model year, which was a 12 or 15 that we already have, shift that to the need, and then buy a new 3/4 ton for the maintenance fleet. Because of the funding and how this is all shifting around, this half-ton goes directly towards the need then, as opposed to our maintenance fleet. So the 3/4 ton is still something that we would pursue in our maintenance side of things. But the need that we have isn't for that with this position. It's the half-ton.
So
Did I explain that okay?
I'm still processing.
Okay, sorry.
So,
We were doing some shuffling internally with our trucks.
yeah.
And so now we're just, instead of buying a brand new truck for our maintenance fleet, we are buying a brand new truck for this position. That's what
Yeah,
that is.
and I guess that's where I was confused, because I thought
Sure.
at that August meeting, we were
Yep.
talking about doing it the other way. made
Correct.
More sense, and so I'm like, okay, we're
Why are
going
we
back.
doing, the funding and the need, which is tied specifically to this position.
Okay.
That's fine. Good question.
Other questions? Not, I'd entertain a motion.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve the purchase of a half-ton pickup.
Thank you, Commissioner Mills. Is there support? Support? Any further discussion? Commissioner Mills.
Very happy we can find a truck.
I don't want to keep doing this, but it's that I'm happy we can do it before construction season, because that was where we had the greatest, we were running into issues, was all the, it was starting to affect work. And so the fact that we can do this prior to everything kicking off makes me very happy, so I appreciate it. Thank you.
Other discussion or questions? Not, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Go get it quickly before it's gone.
I'll be there Thursday.
Thank you so much. All right, at this time, we're going to move into our public hearing regarding the proposed merger of the Cook County Grand Marais Economic Development Authority, the EEA, and the Cook County Housing and Redevelopment Authority, our HRA. Are there any members of the public that wish to speak this morning?
Good morning.
Good morning, Mary, and
I
good morning,
am-
Steve.
Mary Somnus. I forgot how to spell my name. I just want to share a couple of thoughts with you, in addition to the materials that we provided you in your board packet. I was reflecting on the recent history of the EDA yesterday, and it came to me that in the last 10 years, there have been 5 transitions in executive director at the EDA. And there wasn't a very complete transfer of knowledge from one director to the next director. So quickly, Matt Gertschlager left and didn't have any crossover training when Pat stepped up, Campanero, to be interim director the first time. Then, and I don't know, I think she did that for a year or less. I really don't know how long that was. But when I came, then she shared with me everything she'd learned, but she didn't get anything to start with. So there wasn't that much that I received in training and onboarding when I arrived. I think I was able to dig into it because I had history and knowledge of the community and have worked in economic development before that, and I had 5 years to do it. So I had a good amount of time to get some stuff done. Then, when I left, Beth and I should have had more time. That transfer of knowledge wasn't complete, in my opinion, either. And then after 16 months, she's gone, and Pat's there again without really much. So although it sounds like I'm telling a horrible story, the reason I'm telling you the story is because we need to stop doing that. and in spite of all of that, we've gotten a lot of really good stuff done at the EDA. Just a lot of really good stuff has been accomplished there. And this story is exactly why we should think about merging the organizations and have the 2 people working together so that if one leaves, the other one can continue to carry the ball and know what's in the computer and who to talk to about which projects and what's on the agenda for tomorrow, I think it would be a good idea to not continue this one person working alone thing. And from my knowledge of doing that work, I believe that would really make a huge difference in the continuity and the ongoing success, because transition is going to continue to happen. Change will always occur. And we don't want to set the HRA up to repeat this pattern. Then we'll have 2 organizations that have people coming and going, and nobody's there to understand what to do the next day. So that's, for me, a very big point. I want you to know that, as I think you do all know, we're very lucky to have Jason here, who's capable of doing both the housing and the economic development work. You know that I'm committed all the way, both feet all in. And Steve, working with him over the past, since January, since we've started working on this concept together, I've watched him contribute a lot of his personal time and energy to EDA initiatives. And I might embarrass him right now, but I recently learned that he even gets up in the middle of the night when the phone rings and he drives patients in the ambulance, transporting them to Duluth for medical care. So, you know, Steve's a good guy. That's community service at its highest level. You're not going to find me getting up in the middle of the night to drive the ambulance. So I just want to commend you for that. And those are my thoughts this morning so far.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Steve?
Thanks for having us here today. You know, we've done a number of listening sessions with a variety of folks over the last several months. We've been working on this since January, and we believe that we've heard a lot of really good questions, and people have raised risks of merging the two organizations, and I don't want to rehash everything that we put out in our memo to you, but we believe that we've addressed those issues that have been raised, and feel secure in merging the two organizations and moving forward as one. As Mary highlighted, there are some risks in not merging the two organizations that we think are important, and she addressed those. So I just wanted, as you guys make your decision, to be cognizant of those risks. There's increased collaboration of two folks working together on the merged organizations, and then of course it provides the redundancy, as Mary mentioned, in terms of if there's turnover or, you know, heaven forbid somebody take a vacation, which we certainly want folks to do that, but we need the projects to continue to move forward and don't want folks to have to answer their phone and work on their vacations either when they're trying to take a break. So we'd be happy to entertain any questions you guys might have or discussion, but appreciate your time today. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Are there other members of the public that wish to speak this morning? Any other members of the public? All right, well, we'll turn it over to our board to begin some discussion about the proposed merger of the EDA and the HRA. So any thoughts or comments? Commissioner Storley.
Sure, I'll start the conversation. When you look at our map from Duluth all the way up to the border, we're landlocked. We also have 92% of the government owning our land. So we don't have a lot of land to work with. And over the years, you know, we have discussed the housing situation and made a decision that, yes, last year is the time to move ahead and hire somebody to help us out with housing on the limited amount of land that we have, and maybe discover some new pieces of land. Who knows? And then Jason answered our ad, and a year ago joined us in the county and has done fabulous work in terms of going out to find what's possible and being led to what's possible in different parts of the county. And he's done a stellar job in all of that. So what was not included in the packet was two job descriptions, and I asked for that so that I could look them over, because each of them carries a lot of responsibility and creativity and understanding of their role. And there is overlap, yes, I concede to that. Developing and implementing and updating the HRA programs that a HRA hire would do as Jason. The EDA would assume responsibility in workforce housing and include managing and multiple initiatives. That all goes together as far as I'm concerned. Participate in the board with the HRA, with EDA, with the county board, making reports, preparing all of that. That pretty much goes together. Being a spokesman for EDA, yes, you know, if you merge, that'll be part of it. In looking over other items here, the last thing that I would say would be probably the most difficult one would be the county HRA values work-life balance and will offer flexible scheduling. And if we merge the two, how flexible can we be in scheduling their time and their efforts and all of that? So I bring this out because I think we really need to think about the time that one person would have, even though if you merge, the EDA part would have some help. And so I just offer that out as some thoughts for us to consider.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Storley. Other comments? Commissioner Hawkins?
Yes, we started the HRA. It was discussed at the time whether or not to give that HRA authority to the EDA. That was an option. And we decided as a board that it wasn't a good choice at that time. And I am still of the opinion that the timing is not right yet. Do I see down the road, does that make sense maybe, after we have some housing built? Yeah, I could see that easily. But right now, Jason, we've been excited about the work he's been doing. I think farther than I expected to be at this time. And we're going into our building season, and we still don't have one stick of housing yet. The community supported us making the HRA a separate entity. And I think the community is very supportive of the work Jason's been doing. And I don't want to do anything yet to detract from that focus. The EDA has some, like Commissioner Storley mentioned, some things on their plate that also need to be addressed. And I think the EDA needs to start right now, find a director that has the skills to address those needs so that we can address both together. I want to see the HRA and EDA people work together. Boards work together. That's important. But I think we also need to separate out and make sure no one person is overwhelmed. We're a policy-making group, and we should not be making decisions based on one person. That's not the best route going forward.
Any other comments or questions? Commissioner White?
I also had a sit-down with Steve and Mary and got a lot of questions answered. I know one was, this is going beyond, but the EDA, the EDA, I was under the impression that the city contributed monetarily to the functioning of the EDA. Mary explained some of the history and as things as she could recall. But the financial burden for the EDA and the HRA is solely, and if somebody knows differently, please tell me, is upon the county taxpayers and grant dollars and things like that. But the county supports those two entities at this point in time. And I just believe that it's too soon. Not that anyone's not doing a good job, or it's not that, but also it's the history of the EDA, and Mary very nicely explained why there was such discord, interferes, a lot of turnover interferes with the ability of anything to function as it should and to produce results. But because of the history that the EDA publicly has, it is not viewed in the best of light. It's not a real positive thing when people talk about the EDA. And that is something that can absolutely change, but to tie the HRA with the EDA at this point in time is detrimental, just for that, for the public. There's full public support for housing. We all know there is. We don't know if we have not been working with Jason. You know, he's a good guy, I'm told. He does all this. I can see what he does. But I'm not, we've been fooled. I've been fooled as a taxpayer. I've been fooled as a school board person. I've been fooled by different people who had the answers, and they're really good at telling you what the answers are. And then to be like, oh, well, we were manipulated on that one, or we didn't know even what questions to ask to get the answers. So I believe that given some time, and maybe it's in 2 years or 3 years, let's get some housing up, and then the idea of combining the two might be a better idea. But if the EDA were to find their person that could focus on the EDA, and of course, departments work together all the time. I mean, wherever you are, you work together. And in this situation, unless the EDA and the HRA are evicted from where they are at this moment in time, they're in the same space. They're like really close. They could like almost reach out and touch it. Well, maybe not, but you know, they're right there. And so for them to continue to work together it's in how the job is detailed, the job description for the new EDA director. It's a no-brainer that they would be working together. But I would like to have our HRA person have the ability to focus on housing. And if he needs a vacation, there'll come a point where there'll be something undergoing, and there should be a project manager on site, there should be somebody, and unless the building gets hit by lightning or something, his involvement in what's going on shouldn't be cause for him to have to interrupt his time off. So I am not in favor at this point of combining the two. I think it's a good idea down the road, but I will also I listened to Rena Rogers, who she had a staff behind her. EDA and HRA, there's not a group of people behind you at all that understand what you're doing. So to pile more on the HRA director to have to, they have their boards, I get that, but they don't have people that can actually do the work that they're doing. So that's everything that Steve and Mary, it's all positive. There's nothing about that, but it's the time factor. It's just too early as far as I can tell, for me.
Commissioner Mills?
I'm still processing a few
Okay.
comments.
Well, I do have some thoughts I'd like to share. Having served on the EDA for a couple of years, looking at the turnover in board members, I see tremendous growth and strength and sales of business lots, and just a lot of energy and excitement with what's been occurring there. I also, having spent a great deal of time not only looking at the development of the HRA and looking at procedures and policies that were developed, and sitting with that board, know the level of commitment that there is for housing, but not just by the HRA board, also by the EDA board. Both boards critically understand the need for housing. It is the priority, whether it's a merged organization or not. So I think everybody identifies the fact we all know that housing is what is needed first. I also see that the HRA has fostered a huge amount of trust and respect in the community, and I think that is what a merged organization would benefit from. I think Jason, I think the board of the EDA has come such a long way in creating transparency and bringing integrity to the organization, and I think it would do so with a merged organization as well. I think benefits of merging include stewardship of our resources And that, unlike with Rena Rogers, where she took on an additional role, we're talking about hiring an additional person. There would be 2 people. And so I don't feel that there would be as big a concern in terms of workload in that area. I just feel like the communication, the professionalism, commitment, and also the fact that we are working with similar agencies in the EDA and the HRA. We're looking at federal and state partners. We're looking at the IRRB. Many of those relationships are exactly the same for whoever sits in the EDA leadership role in the HRA. And so I think there is strength in bringing those organizations together. Commissioner Mills.
As stated, our number one priority, I think, shared as commissioners is housing, and at this point, and this has been an issue for as long as I can remember. And one of the reasons I got more involved in local government is because of some of the decisions and directions that the EDA and that way back director were taking, and not to say that it was, well, it just motivated me. And so since that time, I feel like there's been work and effort towards housing. And as Mary stated, a lot of the transitions at the EDA made that task extremely difficult. And while all those transitions were happening, there was still that need for housing. And so the path that seemed strongest, at least in my mind, was to form a separate entity, the HRA, while the EDA was navigating some of that transition period, and try to keep those issues separate just so we could keep our focus on housing. And I think that was a really good move. I think that really, as stated, got the public support. I do want to point out there were concerns about us forming the HRA. There were comments at the public hearing speaking against forming an HRA. And there's similar comments and concerns that I hear now for putting them back together. And it's, I think it's a lot of that is just based on the unknown and the risks. And it's true, there are risks and there is a lot of unknown. And as leaders in an organization, we want to do what we can to kind of keep things as certain as possible and try to keep stability and the continuity, I think, as Mary mentioned, I think is really important. And so we want to build resiliency in our organizations. And when you have an organization that's one deep, that's really difficult, if not impossible. And so as I think about how we're going to accomplish our priorities with housing, I think about what's going to improve our chances, what's going to give us the most resources, what's going to give us the most flexibility, as Commissioner Storley pointed out, and it's in my mind having more than one deep, first off, and I think whichever way we go here, we're going to have more of that discussion. When we formed the HRA, the EDA about that time was looking for a new executive director, and it was not an easy process. It was a longer process than I think anyone wanted to have, and we all know about the challenges our community faces filling positions and even higher level positions, and if you think about the salaries at those positions and what kind of housing that can create. I think when we got Jason, and to this day, as my understanding, is still having housing challenges. And so I I see the risks and the challenges of finding another director when we have someone as skilled and talented as our current HR director to be greater than the risks of combining and finding support for the current director. And I just want to point out that both the EDA board and the HRA board voted to recommend this merger. And these boards are no fools. There's a lot of professional experience, much more than I have sitting on these boards. It's been said, and I like to say this quote, that Jason Hale is the single greatest hire of one board member's career. And that carries a lot of weight in my mind because that board member's career is also significant. And so I think about, what do you do when you have a rock star employee? Do you tie their hands? No. You want to give them the tools they need to succeed. You want to give them as many resources as possible to give them that flexibility, to be able to navigate, to give that executive decision level to them to decide. And it isn't without risk, but I think it's best business practice and governance practice to really let people fly when they have those abilities and to support those endeavors. So it's not an easy decision by any means, and there's plenty, but I do think that there is the risk of tainting the HRA with whatever public perception is of EDA's history. And then there's also the potential of healing the EDA with the success of the HRA. And so it's, which way do you feed? Which way do you lean on? Do you lean on the fear side of things, or do you lean on the hope side of things? And I'm really hoping to build, and I think by leveraging Jason's skills and talents, and yes, to Commissioner Hawkins' point, it's not always best to just base things on one person, but we all know that it's not easy to find people, and our labor pool is much more limited, and that there's kind of this new school of thought where when you find somebody, you hold on to them and you give them what you can, instead of making the position and making the individual fit into that. You take an individual and you say, what skills, talents, strengths do you have, and let's give you those. Oh, and you don't have this skill and talent, well, we'll hire for somebody else to fill those areas. And so I think that kind of collaboration, as Steve said, would go a lot farther to serving our community than keeping these kind of siloed. And yeah, you can work together, as Commissioner White said. You could practically reach out and touch each other in the office, but it's not the same whatsoever. If that collaboration is much more difficult when you're in those silos than it is when you're one organization and moving forward. And you know, we had this discussion when we were from the HRA. What do other communities around the state do? Do they have separate ones? Yes, some do. I think like 11 have separate EDA HRAs, but the rest are together because housing is such an economic issue. It ties in together really strongly, and I think we really do need to recognize the leadership that we do have and lean into that and recognize that and strengthen that rather than inhibiting and just waiting, so to speak. I think there's been too much waiting for too long in a lot of leadership positions, and I think we really need to act. We really need to be aggressive in solving problems, and I think this is the way to do it. So that's where my thoughts are, and as time has gone on, I feel like my opinion on the issue has gotten stronger and stronger, starting with, oh, that's a fun idea, that's a shiny new idea, to pulling back and having more reservations about those risks, but then eventually getting to that point, yes, there are risks, but what's our best investment? What is their strongest investment, and how do we enable our community to move forward? That's how I see it. A lot of blabber there.
A lot of good blabber.
Thank you.
So we have certainly explored this topic, studied this topic, talked to our community members, and listened to the boards of both organizations for the last 5 months as we've looked at the issue of merger. And given everything I'm hearing today and what I've heard from my constituents, both in the business community and citizens, and from both the boards of the EDA and the HRA, I would like to make a motion to dissolve the HRA and have them merge with the EDA. Is there support?
Support?
Thank you, Commissioner Mills. We have a motion and support. Is there any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Okay.
Motion fails.
I'd like to make a motion to deny the merger of the HRA EDA and keep the HRA authority with the HRA.
I'll second that.
Any other questions or comments? Any discussion? Commissioner Mills?
So when we talk about time management and the concerns, I guess I forgot about this. Our number one concern is housing, right? And how do we accomplish that? Next on that list, just in how we accomplish that, is my number one concern is Jason Hale. And how do we support him? Burnout is a real thing. We've experienced that in a number of higher level staff positions, and no doubt that we will continue to experience that. Keeping the organizations separate, I think, is going to be more taxing on both executive directors. I think the best way we can support an executive director is to have appropriate staff, and having that higher level staff person, much like Mr. Serba said, was going to help with that collaboration, and then as what Mary said, with that continuity. And we can keep things the way they are, and then you might be surprised to find out that we'll have a similar result as we had in the past. But that's, I think, a likely expectation because we're not really changing a whole lot. It's going to be a long process finding a new ED for the EDA, Executive Director for the Economic Development Authority. And there's some pretty big issues that are coming up. I sure would love to have a really strong leader like we have for that position. But wishes are fishes. That's a saying that I don't really understand, but I think I'd have a lot of fishes. So if we were to deny this merger, I think we are inhibiting both organizations, and I think increasing or decreasing the odds of success for an executive director.
Other comments or questions? Commissioner Hawkins, could you restate your motion? I didn't write it down fast enough.
It's going down my memory.
Okay.
Anyway, I'd like to deny the merger of the EDA, HRA, and keep the HRA authority with the HRA. I had it written down somewhere.
Commissioner White?
And because there's more EDA projects looming on the horizon with Taconite Harbor or with other areas, whomever is in that position is going to have to spend some time on other things that will be developing that the EDA should be working on. It's not necessarily housing, but the potentials are out there. And the EDA, they will find, that board, there will be found a person, just like, that people want to live in Cook County regardless of the fact that they might live in a tent or they might. My own lawyer daughter did that for a summer because she couldn't find housing, so, working as a lawyer. So, the right person is there, and if the EDA now comes out, when they come on board and they see that we have an HRA that seemingly has a lot of momentum working on things, and the county is excited about that, it will energize. And no disrespect, but to say that everyone loves Jason, there's a lot of people saying, I don't know about that, you know? Me too. Yeah, like, I don't believe that, as I have stated, the taxpayers and this government have been misled on more than one occasion by people from the outside coming in. And now we have somebody who came in from the outside, and he's still here, alive and well, doing things for the county, and that says volumes for the individual, but it's too soon. I mean, I think that people are real hesitant to just fully support and trust that things are going to be for the good of the county, no matter what the lip service is, you know. But I don't want to burden the HRA. There might be a need to have a secretary, or however they do that, but to not have to worry about what's happening with and yes, you said they're going to be hiring another person. Well, they're going to be hiring another person with great resume, able to do EDA work, so I still keep them separate.
So I have a motion on the table, Commissioner Storley.
Yeah, but I'd just like to add, the fact that EDA has been going great, struggling along. Mary and Steve have made their point about, risks one way will be risks another way, but I appreciate all the work that you have contributed so far. And, the EDA director, they're into a marketing kind of thing for the county with the golf course and with the Tag Harbor coming up and with the business park. And it's kind of a whole different kind of vein of their role in terms of working with the county and promoting, not quite like Visit Cook County, but there's a lot of marketing involved. And I think that kind of takes away from what your goal and what your course will be, just developing housing. Two different things.
Commissioner Mills.
I'm curious how much commissioners have talked with the HRA board and EDA board aside from our chairs.
I've talked substantially with both boards over the last 5 months and beyond that.
And I have not. I simply trust that the spokespeople for these departments are presenting accurately.
It just, the reason I ask is because the HRA board is who has worked with Jason Hale for this last year. And so they have a year of experience working with him. And so, whereas there might be some public perceptions or public judgments or commissioner judgments about too soon not knowing or having a relationship, that board has a pretty strong one, I think, and had really, really good conversations, and I think that's worth noting. And so,
Commissioner Hawkins.
Well, as a person who attends those HRA meetings, I have had personal conversations. There was, well, I'm not going to name names because these were private conversations, but there was maybe a sense of, well, maybe this will work. And there was also, oh, I don't know if this is the right time. I got both sense from them. Now, when the HRA...
I'm sorry, I was just talking about the trust in Jason Hale and his
Oh,
abilities. Like,
yes.
I don't hear a whole lot of public pushback on that, and that was something Commissioner White was bringing up, and I was just like, well, I wonder where that comes from, because I don't know how real that is as far as real experience versus just...
Well, I'll mention that because I'm also on the City Planning Commission, so guess what? I've been hearing pushback against Jason Hale and projects. So, you know
From
what?
someone who works with him.
No, from the community,
Oh.
when you're talking about that. You want
Perceptions.
to bring, yes, you're talking about perceptions. So, I totally believe Jason Hale could do both jobs. I know that. He's got the skills. I just don't think this is the right time in our community when we're so new. We're still figuring it out. He hasn't built anything yet. We need him to keep on that track and not be diverted. The EDA has some important things going on. They also have some cleanup to do. There's still cleanup to do. I don't want to divert any of Jason's time doing that sort of thing. I am willing to do whatever over this next year to help both boards come up and make sure we've got good policies in place. We've got budgets that make sense. We have balance sheets that make sense for both boards. Then let's come back together. And hopefully we have a house built. Because if we don't have a house built yet, I'm probably going to be hesitant again. But once we have those things in place, come back here, let's have the discussion again. Because it's not a bad idea. But I just am not ready to make that leap yet.
Commissioner Mills.
Back in 2014, 2015, when the city council, county board, and EDA met to discuss starting the west side of Grand Marais housing development, the city council at that time was pushing really hard. The EDA was doing the housing study. They did a housing study. We had this joint meeting, brought it to the county commissioners. The ask was, I think, for the county to provide $175,000. The city was going to provide something nominally less. And the word from the county board was that it's not time yet. They're not comfortable yet spending this money. And that is my fear, is that we're continuing this pattern of kind of waiting and not acting when the knife is sharp. And we can do that, but if you want the EDA to succeed, you want a good leader. I see one. We can look for another one. That's great. We will look for another one, but I don't need to look far to see what I would hire, and or who I would hire, and it just seems really inefficient to spend the resources in this way, in this search. We'd be doing a search anyways for another staff member if it were to combine, but that would be a search that the ED would be spearheading versus the board. So, yeah, I'm disappointed and a little nervous, but I guess we'll carry on.
Commissioner
Well,
Wood.
of course we'll carry on. No one's dying. What we're trying to do is to help an employee that we know at this moment in time, by all outward appearances, he sounds too good to be true, okay? That's the problem. He sounds too good to be true. So he's somewhere below that. I mean, I don't care how the accolades, he's got some flaws. I have no idea what they are, but it doesn't matter. We have one, we need to support him, and by not loading up the things, and the EDA will do a fine job with that board finding leadership, and they will work together. And there will always be, just like with the auditors, like in this smaller community, we don't have enough population or enough tax base to support as many positions as some other larger communities. We can't have all these checks and balances on, and we can't have redundancy in every position. But if we have one person that is doing, well, we don't have anything there yet, but that's working on making connections. We have one. There's always risks, and another will be found, because he that will be a draw with the positive motion that's going forward. And I was told that the person that will be hired will be the redundancy when Jason gets hit by a moose taking a walk in the woods or something like that. I mean, that will be the redundancy, short-term redundancy. And in this county, the people that actually live here, they didn't like just show up and are gonna live here. Those that live here, we know how to make do, and we know how to fix things when they go totally wrong. We know how to keep going forward positively. I mean, we're tough up here and resilient. Maybe that's the same thing, but anyway, we're in a good position. I mean, we're in a good position, for one, that the community supports housing. There's not a question about that. It's just the speed. Again, it's the speed. Why do we have to hurry again? We had to hurry up and begin construction on buildings in the middle of winter, pouring concrete. We had to, I mean, we followed the lead and did this, but with the building of the Y part, and taxpayers feel like they got burned. That's real. Another thing besides being resilient, I don't know if they're holding, if you could say we hold grudges, but we don't forget. But once the trust is earned, the trust is there. Holding grudges in that things that were told to the voters by org management about what we got, and without a doubt, org management made a lot of money and left behind some buildings with some serious problems.
I'd like to
So anyway, but
focus
we
on
don't need
the
to do
issue.
that.
Yeah, I was like,
So,
what
but-
are you
but-
talking
but,
about
okay,
here?
But that's why the community is slow or hesitant to just totally embrace an idea without more thought.
Oh, yeah, well, that's why we're leaders, right? We're here to lead.
And I'm here to represent and to explain, and I also am of that ilk, that I need more time to see it happen.
I think we've all
Yeah, we're
said
off.
our piece.
I'm done.
I think we should call the question.
Thank you.
Could I, Madam Chair? I don't have a vote in this matter, and it's not my place to try to persuade folks either way, but I want to voice one concern that I have. I had hoped that if the merger moved forward, it would open the door for a conversation about Jason's compensation, because he took a big pay cut to come here. And he's brought a really exceptional skill set to this work. And so regardless of which way this vote goes, and this is true both for the HRA and the EDA, starting that position at $80,000 a year, which I know sounds like a lot of money to a lot of people in this community, but in terms of the market, the job market, and the kind of person that you can attract to this community, especially somebody who doesn't already live here and have housing, it's nothing. I mean, it's not going to bring a person of caliber to this community. And so that's my big concern here, is that we're in a position where if we don't pony up, my concern is Jason won't find it tenable to stay here. And, if we don't increase the compensation for the EDA director, if that is kept separate, we're not going to be able to attract the kind of person that we need to do that work. So those are my concerns.
Commissioner
I
Hawkins.
would like to respond to that. I agree, and I think our budgets for both the EDA and HRA, I said that earlier, I want to see updated budgets, updated balance sheets that are clear, and we're going into the budget season. But this vote has no impact, combined or not, on anybody's salary. It doesn't give us any more money to give anybody a raise.
I certainly
Those,
understand that.
those levies have already been set for this year. But yes, I agree. I would like to see both boards do the work and come up with a rational budget that makes sense and not, the budget that was presented to us in our board packet is a mishmash of kind of a budget and a balance sheet. Not good accounting practices. That's not the way you would present good financial information. So we're working on that. I want to see it continue. And yes, I think both boards better think about how they're going to fund their activities in the future. And come back to this board, because guess what? We get to vote on it again.
Commissioner Mills.
One last thing I had is just in terms of attracting somebody else and the salary discussions we're going to be having, a very large part of staff's awareness, both in our organization and other public entities in the community, is how much support there is at the board levels. And I feel like some of this conversation is not all that supportive for a potential future employee. And sure, yeah, it would be great to work next door to Jason, even though if I'm in a different organization, but that's not what's going to draw me here. It's more of that board support and the vision and the leadership. And I see us going into a little bit of a spiral here, so I'll just be quiet, but it's a concern as well.
So we have a motion on the table to deny the merger of the HRA and the EDA and leave the Housing Authority with the HRA. Is there a second?
Commissioner White had the second.
Oh, thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Nay. Motion carries.
Madam Chair, I would like the opportunity to address one thing that I heard here, if I could.
Go ahead.
Commissioner White, just to be clear, when we talked about whether the city supports the EDA and the HRA, and your
Financially?
understanding is financially, and your understanding is that all of the support comes from the county,
No,
that is correct, but I want to remind everyone that the people who live in the city are also county taxpayers. So they're contributing on an equal basis as the rest of us who live outside of the city limits. I wanted to
Good
make
point.
sure that was clarified, because the people in the city are sensitive to that thought, and we need to remember that they are equal to us in terms of county taxes.
okay.
Okay?
Good
Thank
point.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity to clear that up.
All right, thank you. Well, let's take a short break, and we'll return here in about 5-6 minutes. Thank you.
But it's also the city, it's the benefit.
Good morning. We're returning to our Cook County Board of Commissioners meeting after a short break, and we're returning to item number 6 on the agenda, Auditor Powers.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this is our annual contract for SAG Landing. We renew this each year. Voyager Canoe Outfitters has been our contractor for many years. And this year, we put some additions, some changes to the contract based on the desire to relieve some of the pressure on our maintenance staff who make a few trips up there in the summer. So we created, with the maintenance department's help, a list of additional duties that Voyager might be able to do. And we sent it to them, and they expressed positive on being able to do those additional duties, and at the same time, they've requested an increase in the fees up there. So what you have in front of you is the standard contract that we've used for many years with additional duties to make at least monthly trips to relieve us of monthly trips to mow the grass and weed whip and resupply the toilets, make minor repairs that they're able to make to signage and to other facilities. The maintenance department would still be responsible for major repairs, obviously, but so they are on board with this, and they've asked for a fee increase from $250 to $350 per week. So two aspects of that. It's been 10 years since I've had any increase, so they're overdue for an increase, especially given inflation lately. Plus, they're going to take on these duties and relieve us of the need to take care of those. And I'll just ask for any questions.
All right. Well, I can say one thing is, having gone 10 years without any increase, it seems like we as the county are getting a really good deal because they're going to add additional duties, save us gas and time. So I really appreciate the fact that Voyager Canoe Outfitters is willing to do this for the county.
Yeah, just I should point out too that this is paid for by the fees, the parking fees that people pay to use that landing.
Correct.
And we have additional funds each year that we use to take care of other landings and some of our other, the Leo Lake, Clearwater, et cetera, that may have issues, so.
All right. Commissioner Storley.
Thank you. So the funding there now at $350 per week is for about 5 or 6 months?
Yeah, it'll start opening a fishing, basically.
Okay.
And then it just depends on weather and when the season ends. Typically, it's towards the end of September. Once in a while, it might go a week into October, but
So the increase
Usually
in
not.
fees should cover it?
it will. Yeah. Yeah, we're already getting pre-sales on the $75 annual. And given that, and given the recent, unless something collapses in the fishing market, yeah, it'll cover it.
Other questions? Commissioner Hawkins.
I'm just curious, do you know off the top of your head how long ago those fees have been set? Were they 10 years old, just like? Should we be looking at the fee structure?
Oh, on when our.
Yeah, the fees we charge for the landing.
Not 10 years.
Okay.
But, yeah, I'll bring that back. It's been a few years, but maybe 5, something like that.
I just wanted to
So-
make sure that, our costs are increasing, that we
Yeah.
are making sure we're
Yeah.
taking a look at what
I
we're
th-
charging them.
That's on my list, to look at it at the end of this year with the increased costs and et cetera, and maybe making a little jump for next year, but.
All right, good question. I think those fees are important to keep an eye on, definitely. Other questions or comments? If not, I would entertain a motion.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Mills.
I will second.
Thank you, Commissioner White. We have a motion and support. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Auditor Powers. Administrator York.
All right, well, my report today is brief, not that there isn't a lot going on, but not a lot of new information to share. I did get yesterday a copy of the draft capital improvement plan from our consultant, CRBPS, and I'm going to be reviewing that document over the coming week. We still plan to publish it a week from yesterday, so the 15th, and we'll have that available on the county website for public review and comment for about a month. And then we'll be coming back to you with a request to approve the CIP at the second meeting in June, which will be June 27th. So things are shaping up, and there's still work going on behind the scenes in terms of exploring other options. I have gotten some feedback, both from our Budget Advisory Committee members and from some community members that, they want to make sure that we're not just setting our sights on building a new building, but exploring other options as well. There was a suggestion that we could convert space in the basement of this building to offices, and that would alleviate our congestion in this building. And that was suggested by a Budget Advisory Committee member. And so I met with him, and we went through the basement and looked at the way the space is currently being used. And he came away with the understanding that that really would not be feasible. So there may be some other options that would be available to us, but the CIP that will be put forward for your approval at the end of June it'll include two components, basically. The deferred maintenance, which we already know the price tag on that is about $13.4 million. And then the conceptual plan for additional space will also be part of that plan. There will be a space needs analysis that is part of the draft document that will be published next week. And so I do expect we'll be getting public comments and questions about it, and I will be more than happy to respond to your questions or any residents' concerns that there may be. So that's one thing. We continue to move forward on the development of a strategic plan. We've met with most of the departments now around vision and mission. The steering committee has started working on defining categories for objectives. We still have to kind of finalize the vision and mission, but we've had a preliminary discussion about objectives, and I feel like that's moving in a really good direction. And I would invite Commissioner White or Commissioner Hawkins if you have anything you'd like to say about your participation in those conversations.
It's a very brain taxing experience trying to find the right words, to categorize and then to find clear. And then there's all these people who all have good ideas, and we're all saying the same thing, but we're all saying it differently. Mm-hmm. So we'll get there. We'll get there. And this is one person that's had experience, so she sits there and she's quiet, so that's not so bad.
Me quiet, really?
Yeah.
Not always. But no, I agree. I think it's really fun to see that you can have a group of people, department heads, discussing ideas and see the similarities in the ideas, like Commissioner White is saying, and then really coming together and realizing you're really talking about the same thing, we just say it differently. And it's a lot of work yet to do, but it really is fun, I think, to watch happening.
Yeah, I think we're going in a really good direction, and I'm excited. I'm excited by the participation. All the steering committee members have been really active in our discussions, and I've been really pleasantly surprised by how active staff have been in the departmental meetings that we've had so far. It's really essential that we have the involvement of all levels of the organization in this plan development. So really happy about that, and a shout out to our staff for their involvement in that. Those are kind of the two big things. There's lots of little things that I don't bother you all with because there's just always stuff popping up. But one other thing that I wanted to bring up, big picture, is that we are nearing the end of the legislative session. A lot of bills have passed out of the Senate and the House and are going to conference committee. And we are starting to get letters or requests from various organizations like Soil and Water to support legislation for soil and water district funding and that kind of thing. Cannabis bills are moving forward. And so there's, and depending on what happens in conference, that will depend on, or that will impact, of course, what the final bills are and what the level of support for counties and local jurisdictions will be. But that's all I have for this week.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Hawkins.
I'm just wondering how we are coming along with our financial management plan and our long-term
We are.
forecasting.
We're still working with Ellers on that. We haven't gotten feedback yet.
I just want to say, I think it's really important as we are going into our budget season, that we have that information, and I really want to see it going out 5 years. I get its assumptions, but
Yeah.
it just helps us make good budget decisions today if we see the impact that's going to have on the future.
For sure, for sure.
All right, well, on to our commissioner concerns and updates. Let's start with Commissioner White. What have you been up to recently?
Well, let me tell you all about this for emergency purposes. There is the next generation 911. So it will be there. It's in development. Many places have it, but it is. You get the app and you put it on your cell phone, and it's not. The bugs have not completely been worked out yet, but if you're in trouble and you push 911, the receiving agency, say law enforcement, they can zoom in and say, "Oh, you're within 3 square miles," or whatever the case may be. With the enhanced 911, they'll say, "You are right there on that rock with the third tree from the right." I mean, they can do that, and so that is the big topic of conversation in Northeast Minnesota for that situation. Down at the hub, they continue to soldier on with spreadsheets that are enough to make one's eyes cross, and working on getting murals, getting their job descriptions in place, building maintenance, finding, like when was the last time the air vent over the stoves in the kitchen were cleaned? Oh, 10 years ago. Maybe we should deal with that. So this is a group of volunteers that are doing all of this, and I just continue to commend them. And if any one of you out there, volunteers, are listening, I told you I would do this, because they need all the attaboys they can get doing this, because they care about this space and providing a space for the community to come, for the community, not just older generation, but any generation to feel welcome. So what was the other big thing? I'll have to, what other big meeting did I go to that I thought was really cool? Can't think of it at this moment. Oh, I still don't know what the whole acronym means, but it's the Northern Counties Land Use CB.
North End Club.
Coordinating board, I think.
And
Coordinating board. Coordinating board. Anyway, the big topic on their conversation is about PILT. It's about the legislature. And on June 1st, they are having a meeting. It's also when the Association of Minnesota Counties is having a meeting. But they will be there, and they are lobbying for an increase in the PILT funding. And so that is,
And for listeners, that is state payments in lieu of taxes.
oh, thank you.
Compared,
Thank you,
which is
yes.
not the federal.
I know what tilt is even, these just rolled off my tongue. So yes, payment in lieu of taxes, because we have so much land that is government-owned that we don't get to tax it. And so someone needs, pay us something to help us run the county. So that is seems to be a really tight group of individuals who, seemingly know exactly what they're talking about and know a lot of people on the legislative level. And so there's a lot of history. I'm looking forward to actually meeting them all in person. So when we have these Zoom meetings, they're not just the talking heads, which they know I call them a talking head, that it'll just be easier for me to participate and for them, which I have been, but it's just a group that of a lot of knowledge for me, so.
All right. Well, thank you very much. Commissioner Storley?
Well, I would give a little report from the North Shore Scenic Council. What they've done is they have gone, starting in Duluth, and they assess all the different wayside rests, like Burlington and Father Baraga's Cross and Tofty Park and Lutzen Park, and they give them a rating. Low, meaning pretty much everything is done and can't do anymore, to medium to, well, maybe you better look into something here, to high, like, ooh, maybe lots need to be done. I mean, most of it is pretty much medium to low. But if you visit any of the wayside rests or whatever, you'll understand why they rate them, and then they help. As far as my end goes, it would be the townships who work with the park and so forth to upgrade them a little bit, maybe safety, outdoor biffies or whatever. But anyway, I thought that was interesting that, of course, it's a scenic byway. That's why they would assess them every few years. That was interesting to see that.
All right. Commissioner Hawkins?
Well, I guess I don't have any big things to report on, but you noticed in our agenda, consent agenda, the Curling Club lease, so I did have a community center meeting last week. Things are going really well, and we're excited for summer, and we got the Curling Club lease because they were very successful this last winter, which was good news.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Mills?
Probably the biggest meeting is the kind of that TAC Harbor Steering Committee. We had a meeting at City Hall just to try to get some things, some cohesion, and the West End has been working on this for quite some time, and so there's a lot of catching up to do with the EDA side of things there. And going to be meeting with Minnesota Power, I think on the 23rd is when we have our meeting. That'll be down in Duluth. Meet with all the people who knows what's what with all that process, hopefully. And also working with the state. And just the beginning of those conversations to really find out what's the deal, what's the scope, what's the potential, what are the hurdles, and all that sort of stuff. So. Great ideas and a lot of federal resources and some good state resources too, a lot of different partners, and again, really trying to learn what we can from the West End's experience in that, with that history. So that's probably all for today.
All right, thank you. Well, I had an opportunity to attend the Cook County Local Energy Projects meeting, and it's interesting. They've gone through strategic planning. I'm seeing some common themes through our organizations. They did the strategic planning recently, have formed several committees, and they have an executive director that's been there about 1 year. So they're in the process of doing a performance evaluation, just like we've done with some of our other organizations locally. Firewise met and was very excited to welcome Erin Mullen-King, who we approved in our agenda at the end of April to work as the Firewise coordinator, and Erin and Elsa Lundy, who was formerly in that position, will be spending some time working together to create a smooth transition. And And I guess the big thing was our emergency management conference that was held last weekend on Friday the 28th and Saturday the 29th. And I just want to really give Mike Keyport a huge round of applause for all the effort and work that he put into making that conference successful, bringing it back after 3 years of absence due to COVID. He had excellent presenters for our first responders, for general community members. I was amazed at the technology that was brought forth that can assist search and rescue using heat sensors to locate bodies out, hopefully live bodies out when you're performing a search for someone that's lost, let's say in the Boundary Waters or Superior National Forest. And thinking there was a little boy that was lost in the UP this past weekend, missing for 2 days. They didn't have that kind of technology, and it took 2 days to find him, and fortunately, they found him alive. But I thought, boy, this is the kind of technology that we need to have in all our wild places to be able to help people and successfully bring them home to their families. They also looked at technology down in the harbor with using sonar to locate bodies and shipwrecks, and to then use underwater cameras to then further their search and be more precise. It was just an absolutely amazing conference. And again, thanks to Mike Keyport and all those people that helped put this on. It was very successful, and I would just encourage, I know Commissioner Storley was there on Friday, I would encourage commissioners and members of the public to attend, because there is just so much valuable information that is shared through that. Anything else for the good of the order? Well, we do have recognition of staff this morning, and to me, this is always just a really exciting part of our agenda. So Rachel Schauer, Tia Parks, Stephen Janessi, all 1 year of service to the county. Troy Olm and Jason Hughes with 8 years of service. Elena Hansel, 12 years in soil and water. Allison Plummer, 17 years. Kyle Oberg, 18 years. Paul Spry, 21. Chief Deputy Sandstrom, 22 years. Darcy Ziller, 25. Deputy Leaf Lundy, who's outside in our entryway this morning, 25 years. And to top it all off, Rusty Johnson with 27 years. So congratulations to all of them, and thank you for your many, many years of service. And with that, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you, Commissioner Hawkins. Is there support?
Support?
Thank you, Commissioner Mills. We have a motion and support. Anything further? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Have a good rest of the day. So I was just